Overseas, where at least 63 Canadians have been killed following a plane crash in Iran. The Ukrainian International Airlines flight carrying 176 people crashed shortly after takeoff from Tehran's main airport. There are no survivors. Now, the plane was a Boeing 737-800 model, an older model than the Boeing 737 MAX, which had been grounded for nearly 10 months because of two deadly crashes. Redmond Shannon is following developments and joins us now. Redmond, what is the very latest?
Good morning, Travis. Yes, well, what we know about this crash is that just after 6 a.m. local time in Tehran this morning, that was around 9:42 Eastern time last night, the plane took off heading for Kiev. It's a Ukrainian International Airlines flight, a Boeing 737-800. Now remember, that's not a Boeing 737 MAX. Those aircraft are grounded. The 800 is an aircraft with a very good safety record. That particular aircraft last night initially climbed normally to around 8,000 feet, and then something went very wrong. The flight data suddenly disappears once the aircraft reached that altitude, and that indicates that something perhaps quite catastrophic happened. Now, investigators, or at least the Ukrainian embassy in Tehran, initially said it was connected to an engine failure. It should be noted, of course, that these aircraft can operate very well on one engine, so that there was a climb back from that initially, and investigators are saying that the cause remains open, although they are pointing at technical failure. However, of course, given the nature of this crash, when it happened and where it happened, there are connections, and obviously there are concerns that this may be connected to the conflict in the Middle East and between Iran and the US, particularly given what happened last night. Now, both black boxes reportedly have been found, but it's being reported also that Iran is refusing to, or saying it will refuse to hand over those black boxes to Boeing. Obviously, that could be connected to the current conflict too. So a lot has yet to be discovered about what went on, but what we know is that this plane crash was catastrophic and no one survived.
And Redmond, an extraordinary amount of Canadians on board that plane. What do we know about the victims right now?
Mm-hmm. Well, what we know, Travis, is that, yes, a large number of Canadians were among the victims on the plane that crashed. And for the most part, excuse me, forgive me, I have a bit of a cold. For the most part, there were 82 Iranians on board and 63 Canadians, although Iran says that there were 147 people on board from Iran, and that would indicate that a lot of the Canadians and other nationals on board the plane were dual nationals. Now, this plane was heading from Tehran to Kiev in Ukraine, and it's believed and it's understood that a lot of the Canadians on board this flight were probably taking the flight, connecting flight onto Toronto a few hours later. Now, we don't know any details about the Canadians themselves, but I'm sure that we will learn more about their identities and where these people were from as the day progresses, Travis.
Yeah, certainly a lot more to come on this.
So, today is a very sad day for Canada. I start by saying that I am deeply saddened, and I offer my deepest condolences to the families of those Canadians whom were killed. Essentially, what I take away from this is that the plane, at least logically speaking from what I'm looking at, because I don't like to give my opinion without a little bit more information, the fact that the Iranians captured the black boxes and didn't turn them over to Boeing is very, very troubling. The fact that the plane has a stellar record of safety and is able to continue flying with just one engine is very troubling as well. So I agree with this gentleman. I don't think it is a technical failure. Or if it was, it is very unlikely that's what would bring it down. And thirdly, I would say that given the debris field that you can see right here, there was a looked like a canal or a sewage trench. I would say it's quite likely that this plane was shot down in the crossfire. There's the trench. I can see it now. The debris field, the plane is essentially destroyed, completely destroyed. The fuselage is nowhere to be found except in pieces. I would say that a missile most likely hit it, and it blew up instantly somewhere around 8,000 feet, like the gentleman said. That seems to be a logical conclusion. We don't have all the information at this time, but many of you, my fellow Canadians, will be looking at it probably the same way. You would think that if they had a normal engine failure, that the pilot could then put it down somewhere, because they were very close to the airport when this happened. So any decent pilot would be able to turn the plane around and make an emergency landing with one engine. If they had multiple engine failure, well, there's another question for us. But I think given the debris field, it most likely exploded in the air. Pardon me. And the pieces, the debris, essentially crashed everywhere. But they were able to recover quite a few bodies. You can see, let's see here. You can see some of the bodies here. It really is a terrible tragedy. But again, we don't have all the facts. It's possible that this engine did suffer and the plane did crash. Pardon me, the engine suffered catastrophic failure and then the plane did crash. But I find it unlikely. Even with one engine, it could still fly. Without both engines, it could possibly glide. But again, we don't have all the facts, but it is very suspicious that the Iranians will refuse to turn over the black box, because that will be the evidence we need to confirm what happened. But from my chair here, I would say that the plane, it's highly likely that the plane was shot down. It's a terrible day for Canada. In addition, I find it extremely insulting to the Canadian military to have them pulled back to the safety of Kuwait. Not because I want war or I want to place Canadian lives in danger. No way. America is our brother, essentially. The two countries cooperate in unity. Any grievance toward America, Canada as its natural ally and brother should be there to assist our American brothers and sisters, you can say, any way that we can. Essentially, this is not Trump's fault. Iran decided to escalate the situation long before Trump was involved, and Trump, as a strategist, decided to cut the head off the snake, if you will, with Soleimani. So this retaliation did not kill any Americans. I saw the interview today. It did not kill or injure any American personnel stationed at those two bases, which were the target of those missiles. So Iran's threat, you can say, was not exactly threat, but the attack had no casualties for the American personnel. So but this here, If I were Trudeau, I would approach Trump to push the Iranians to turn over the black boxes and to discover the true nature of the crash. Before we escalate things to an act of war, let us first get more information from that plane. But essentially, if I were Trudeau, I would approach Trump and ask them to see what they can do about the turning over of the black boxes for the crash. But I think it's highly likely, so I'm not an aircraft engineer, but I would say it's highly likely, given the reputation of that 737, that it did not suffer engine failure. It was shot down by chance, by accident, or deliberately by a missile. So, my fellow Canadians, this is a very sad day. Again, my condolences to the families of the victims of that flight. So, I guess I will be waiting for the forthcoming announcement by our government here, and I feel terribly sad about this this tragedy. Thank you very much for your time, and goodbye.